there's a population that we want, that the Main Street downtown storefronts are full. There's activity on the street during the day. Families are able to stay in Creswell because of the amount of career opportunity or job opportunity that has developed over those 20 years. Housing is uh, set up so there's an offering to people, and our biggest challenge would be too many people want to move to Creswell because we're such an outstanding community. That would be an ideal achievement for the city of Creswell.
Yeah. Okay, the Gentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation. Knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Gentry. The Gentry Podcast. The Gentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello, and welcome to the Jentry Podcast. Today, we have an incredible guest. I'm your host, Jonathan Mason, and with me today, I have Vincent Martorello, who is the city manager of Creswell, Oregon. He brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the podcast, and I am so excited to have him with us here today. Vincent, how are you doing?
Doing fantastic, Jonathan. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to have a discussion today.
The pleasure's all mine, but I have to get right into it. So
Sure.
what is the special sauce? What makes Creswell, Oregon the best place to live in the United States?
So I think there's a couple of things. It's a desirable place to live because of our location. We're in beautiful Lane County, Oregon. We're about 10 miles south of Eugene, Oregon, famous for the Oregon Ducks, University of Oregon. We're about an hour away from the coast, an hour away from the high desert. So we are in a great launching plan, visiting different areas, desirable place to live, and beautiful scenery. And our community has a strong civic pride that keeps us in government on notice at all times. So that's part of the secret sauce, our accountability.
I love that. I don't hear that one too often. The accountability of the community is one of the special places. And yeah, I've heard great things about Oregon. One of my friends just moved out to Bend, Oregon.
Okay,
Uh,
yes.
yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I've heard some great things out there. But before we get into the X's and O's and that accountability that you spoke of, I always feel like you can learn a lot about a community by learning about their leadership. So could you give us and take it all the way back? What was childhood like? Did you always know you wanted to get into public service? And how did you end up here in Creswell?
Wow. So yeah, my path is really, it's diverse. So my first interest, my first love was horticulture, landscape maintenance. In high school, I had my own business of about 40 accounts and really thought that was my path, landscape maintenance. That led to an interest in landscape design, which led an interest to landscape architecture and urban planning. I have 2 masters from the University of Michigan for landscape architecture and urban planning. I've been a certified planner, a certified arborist, a certified Oregon nursery professional. All that opportunity led me to Oregon State University, where I was the campus planner, helping them publish and get approved their campus master plan, which led to director of facilities, which was really my first exposure to executive leadership, complicated politics to navigate, which I think at the time did a great preparing for me in my later career. While I was going through it, it was very painful because of the navigating of the politics for a higher education. Then that led me back. After that, I went back to planning and development, was working within a park district as superintendent and director, most recently in Council Bluffs. And my wife and I wanted to move back out to Oregon to be with our grandchildren. And as I was interviewing for a Parks and Recreation director position, it really seemed like a wash and repeat for me. Like I couldn't get a sense of what my new challenge would be. So In conversations with my wife and her really encouraging me, I took a chance to step out of my comfort zone and went for a city manager position in a place that we wanted to relocate to. And I've been very fortunate enough to be working for a city of Creswell now for, I think I just started my 8th month.
That is awesome. When I said it to start the podcast, I did not say it on accident, but a wealth of knowledge and experience. I often believe that the ability to do multiple things is impressive, but the viewpoints and the point of views that it brings to leadership is so important. And you've done you've done a lot of very impressive things. And so now focusing on the community itself. I know you guys have a comprehensive plan. What are some of the strategic priorities that you are looking at? Right?
Right now, we're looking at really a focus on continued guided growth. So the city of Creswell really enjoys being rural and a small town. But for us to stay sustainable economically, we need to have growth that doesn't upset that small town atmosphere. So it's really looking at how do we guide growth so we can attract businesses while maintaining the businesses that we have, that healthy balance of competition without negating that economic development that's occurring now. Another one is our continued community outreach. Creswell's really fantastic from a standpoint of the community pride, but it also is really, I'm going to say, diverse with regard to, or separated with regard to, some political ideology. And that's an interesting one to navigate at times. So it's really maintaining that community outreach. From my position, I let the councilors get political. That's their job. My job is really to interface with the public every day. And if people don't know my political ideology here, that then I'm doing my job, because I can't risk offending one group or the other. So that is a strategic effort that we do on a daily basis, is just maintaining that community outreach. Another priority is looking at our housing and really trying to diversify that portfolio of housing that we have in Creswell.
I think those are all important things, and it really, on a personal note, it kind of hit me when you said if people know my political leanings, that I'm not doing my job. Because on my podcast, I have people from every walk of life, from every end of the spectrum, and I try to get to the bottom of the issues and what they're
Yes.
doing in the communities. I don't necessarily get into, funny enough, the politics of it either.
Well, well, it becomes a distraction after a while, unnecessarily. And even when I was interviewing for park and recreation director positions, I was asked kind of like a politically leading question. And my response is, if you shouldn't know my political ideology, that I'm here to serve the community and the customer, regardless of who they are, where they come from. Like, then I'm doing my job. And if it gets layered with that, the pressures that are on a lot of the country right now, then it becomes a distraction. And I don't think local government in my positions and our staff become as effective as we can.
Yeah, that resonates with me. My goal is to shed light on leaders that are creating innovative solutions to support their community, and in the hopes that those could be replicated. The politics, while important, aren't necessarily important to the X's and O's of local government,
Yes.
in my opinion. But yeah, so you spoke about a couple big things that I'd love to touch more deeply on: business retention and attraction, but then also housing. Two very big things. As far as Crestwell goes, are there any industries that you guys feel are industries for tomorrow, or industries that you want to make sure you're just strengthening and continue to boost in the community?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because one of the things that Creswell is faced with is, during the day, about 75 to 80%, and these are estimates, of our population leave Creswell. They work primarily in Eugene and Springfield, either for some of the major hospitals or community college, University of Oregon. Our economic diversity or strategy is really to have those shops and restaurants that not only serve the people that stay here, but then also can be viable on the weekend. So from an industry standpoint, we have one lab. Golf is a major industry, national, international golf club manufacturer that we love having here. Our school districts play a big role in the city, but we don't have any specific larger industry. And I think that's part of our guided growth piece, part of the difficulty of keeping Creswell community in Creswell at the time. So what we're looking to do is to identify those type of businesses that will help augment what we have already. We don't even have a grocery store in Creswell. So there was one years ago and it closed down. So our belief is when people are on the way home to Creswell, they do their food shopping or a lot of their shopping before they come to Creswell. So a grocery store that would be here, a larger one, would be more of that top off type of strategy where you forgot the milk, you forgot the eggs, you needed a couple of things. So we have a smaller market that does really well. So that's our struggle. What is that paradigm for us where we can attract businesses, make them profitable, and still maybe not have a leading industry per se?
Interesting, interesting. Yeah. And wow. I know it's just an estimate, but 75 to 80% of the residents leaving throughout the day. That is interesting opportunity, I'll say, to figure out ways to keep them either in the community or definitely keeping them patronizing the businesses of the community. And then the next thing that you teased out was housing. So what does housing look like in Cresswell? Are there any maybe underbuilt pieces of the housing stock or things that you want to do going forward?
So housing is interesting. Our median housing um, price is right around 400,000, 425, and this is for a community of 5,800 people, and that creates a lot of challenges with really looking at what is a good portfolio of housing for. So where we could use housing, certainly starter homes, apartments, duplexes, so we can establish that portfolio of as people enter the workforce, as they're able to purchase a home, a second home, retire, we're keeping our families and our community here in Cresswell. For one of a small rural community of 5,800, we also have, I think, one of the larger median incomes in Oregon. I think this year the median income was just at 100,000, 105,000. It's a community of 5,800 people. So there's a schism there, especially when we want to apply for grants. A lot of times we're not eligible for grants because of our median income. And then that translates to housing prices. So we are looking at ways to increase the density of housing when zoning allows, looking at where apartments make sense, duplexes, just approved a couple of duplexes recently. I think creating that portfolio is our major priority right now.
Was an interesting point that you brought up, and I guess I just hadn't. You can see my how I reacted. I hadn't really thought about that when you have a smaller community, but then it has immediate income based on you know a lot of people working in a larger city, and
Yes.
how that then affects your ability to go out and get those grants that would support the housing prices. And I mean, while, median means middle. So some of the people may not need as much support. There are those early people that definitely need that support. They're missing out just because of the median. So that was a interesting thing to think through.
Here's another piece of that. The people that stay in Cresswell to work, their median income is around 40, 45,000,
Yeah.
which again creates that, I don't know, that spectrum of how do you establish affordable housing, starter housing, and a portfolio when that spectrum is so wide.
Yeah, that's a very interesting challenge because yeah, like it's almost like a tale of not in a bad way. Like I know it makes sense based on where they're working, but a tale of two cities in
Yes.
a sense of the people that are staying. And those are the people that are providing the services that you need in the community and can't live without, but they don't have the same income ability at this moment as those people obviously going to Eugene and places like that.
Yes.
Wow. But so I'm trying to, I'm doing this in real time, like thinking through like how that affects housing because it sounds like, and this from a develop, like if I'm a developer, I'm thinking, okay, this median income, they're outside of a larger city. Those are all signals that I should go there. So, and it sounds like what I heard, you guys have a good amount of projects kind of in the pipeline in which people are starting to develop. Is that correct? Or
Well, we have one subdivision that's been approved, so that's good. We are looking at, like I said, recently approved a couple of duplexes. We have a very small plot of city-owned properties, and the city doesn't own a lot of property in Creswell. And we're working with a consultant to increase the density. So right now, the density allows for 2 single-family homes or a duplex. We're looking to see if we can get 3 or 4 on that property. And then what does that look like? And how, if we can, then what zoning issues may we need to address? That process is underway now. So we're as things come up, we're really think being agile and opportunistic is our approach for that right now. All of this is layered with the reality that Creswell is currently operating under a mutual agreement and order from Department of Environmental Quality. And a long story, somewhat short, bear with me. So um, we discharge our wastewater into a small channel that feeds a small stream. And with all of the changing regulations at DEQ and the amount of water flow that's in those channels and creeks, we don't meet certain standards at times. And this has been going on for years and years. So we're under this order, which is basically putting a moratorium on development until we reach certain thresholds or conditions. We've been doing that. So we've allowed to develop what 10 housing units, or we get credit for 10 housing units. We are looking at a regional solution that will take our wastewater to a regional wastewater commission. That project is at about 52 million that that we have to come up with. That we figured out a way to do that with loans and grants and some of our reserves. But so as we're trying to attract businesses and build housing, we're also then moderating that with how many we can do at one time. When there's an eager developer that wants to come in and say, hey, I want to do this, I want to build these houses, we have to say, okay, we want you to do that, but here's the reality that we're dealing with. So how do we work together to get this done? And this one developer is aware of the situation, has worked with us. So we're hoping to be out of this order within 5 years, 7 years, which is timing out for a lot of our commercial development interests, and housing we will just need to incrementally phase in over that time.
wow, I can hear the balancing act that it takes to run a successful community and the different things that you're dealing with. And I don't envy you. I respect you, but I do not envy you.
I had no gray hair before I started this job eight months ago, Jonathan.
It happens quick, but I definitely enjoyed that because yeah, as I was doing, I was just thinking through the different things and then utilizing the consultant to even just see what is possible. That all interests me very much. But I do want to shift gears a little bit. These are our last chance games, so it comes from improv. So think
Uh-oh.
just the first thing that comes to your head on these questions is the answer that we want, and then we'll come back. I'll maybe give you three, and then you can answer, and then I'll give you four more, and then you can adjust your answer as we need. But I'll go ahead and read these all. So the first one is, what policy looks good on paper but is nearly impossible to execute in real?
Policy of transparency. So that's a buzzword, and we meet that to the greatest extent possible. So I produce a weekly update for the council. I publish those. We publish all of our meeting minutes. We follow the public meeting laws for transparency, public records. On paper, it sounds great. And the reality is the expectation of the community, where because the definition of transparency is different for people. So how much transparency one person expects and what we can do is different than the other. So that's a difficult policy for us to meet expectations because the expectations aren't consistent with what we can provide.
That makes a ton of sense. It is definitely difficult to maintain transparency to the level that works for everybody. So let's see. What is the biggest long term risk that you cannot fully address in a 2 year or 4 year election cycle? And then said differently, I like to give more context. What is the thing that keeps you up at night as far as it comes to the city?
Yeah. I think it gets back to our economic development. So our policy of guided growth dates all the way back to 1975 and it's built into our 1982 comprehensive plan that we have with the state of Oregon. But a lot of those initiatives, a lot of the things that we look to do take time. So when you look at development, the design or permit approval at the city is minimum 120, 150 days. Then you have construction, then you have all the planning before that. So in a 2-year cycle, something that a councilor votes on, they might not see come to fruition because of delays or things like that. So I think it's really the challenge is maintaining the enthusiasm about long-term economic development policies and the understanding of how long planning takes. We're looking at doing some water improvement at one of our parks, ecology improvement, things like that. It'll be a year or 2-year process just getting through the permits because we have so many different state agencies. So I would imagine for a counselor to be enthused about that project that they may not even see to come to fruition. They want the quick turnabout, which is reasonable, that maybe aligns with the platform that they stood on or an initiative that they want. So that's the challenge at times is that 2-year, 4-year cycle becomes from a planning standpoint, a development standpoint, long-term economic initiatives. It's not a very long time.
That's a really good point. Yeah, those lags, and then you have new people sometimes in the seats, or just maintaining the enthusiasm. That is very important. What is the hardest truth that you wish residents knew about trade-offs and timelines?
With what? I didn't catch the last part.
Trade-offs and timelines.
So government moves slow. That's the reality. The trade-off, it costs money and it's expensive to live in a rural community. Just with the water fees, the sanitary fees, utility fees. This is common for a lot of smaller rural communities where in the past, a lot of that cost was absorbed by the city because it wasn't very expensive to do or the costs weren't as high. And now, with all of the increased regulations, the increased level of accountability that we need to be with the services that we provide, a lot of small cities like Creswell can't absorb that cost. So the reality and the trade-off of living in a wonderful small city like this, it does cost more than people would otherwise think, I believe, from the amount of cost of their water, sewer, electricity, things like that.
Yeah, don't necessarily always think about that, but even just for like a per capita, like the amount of people in certain cities can kind of defray some of those costs, but
Mhm.
in a smaller community, it's not necessarily there. The last question I have before we shift into me giving you some free money, so it'll be a little bit. What is a role that you don't have on staff now that if you were able to add would add value and increase outcomes immediately?
I think it would be a building inspector. We contract out our building inspection and some of our permit process to another municipality that's a little bit larger than ours, but has the wherewithal with staff to absorb the work that we have. That creates delays on our end. It sometimes creates maybe conflict would be a word or just a difference of opinion on how a customer should be handled in that process. So I think having our own building inspection person or team would dramatically change our ability to effectively interface on projects and interface with with the customers, our community.
Makes a ton of sense. Now, as I promised, I'll shift to giving you some free money. So this is a three-parter. So
Okay.
the first one is, what would you do? What role, challenge, opportunity would you address with an additional $100,000 to the budget? The second question is, what role or challenge would you address with $1 million additional to the budget? And then the final one is, if you had unlimited resource, unlimited
Mm.
staff, unlimited anything and everything you could need for an entire year, what would be the challenge that you would
Okay. So the 100,000, I would look at some of our low hanging fruit projects. So 100,000, that might be one or two good projects. And those might be some ADA improvements out along our roads, some minor road improvement, pothole repair, things like that. It's crazy to say, but $100,000 does not go a long way. So then I appreciate you giving me the $1 million. So the $1 million, that would be for, I think, some of the larger projects. So we have a transportation system plan where all of our road projects are identified. I would look at those priorities and see what we can do that would be the highest impact for the community from a transportation network standpoint. The other option may be to take some of that and improve one of our parks for the community. Now, if you're giving me unlimited funds, which I appreciate, I would, after that year, I would probably lose my job because I would become a tyrant with people. I would expect we are getting everything done because we only have a year. So I would run staff into the ground, making them work all sorts of ungodly hours. They're getting overtime. We may bring in other people, but we would look at the end of that year, what would be the things that we would want to look back on and say, we did it. So we have more housing. We have a couple of commercial enterprises done or on their way of being completed. We've done a lot of the design work that costs money that sets it up for shovel ready. We can then, so whoever the city manager is after I leave, because I've just run staff into a ground and they don't like me anymore, that next city manager will be set up pretty nicely.
Wow. Well, I will say this: with unlimited money, they may may not like how much they had to work, but they were probably adequately compensated
Yes, I would
for
make sure that that happens.
look at that work. So again, going back to trade-offs,
Yes.
but wow, that is incredible. From the low hanging fruit, which is important, getting things ADA accessible, to then potentially looking at the transit opportunities, and then getting everything done.
Everything you can.
Uh, Everything you can. I think that is great, and it dovetails nicely into my last question, which is, in 20, 25, even 30 years from now, what are the residents saying about Creswell?
Hopefully what they're saying is that there's a population that we want, that the main street, downtown storefronts are full. There's activity on the street during the day. Families are able to stay in Creswell because of the amount of career opportunity or job opportunity that has developed over those 20 years. Housing is set up so there's an offering to people. And our biggest challenge would be too many people want to move to Creswell because we're such an outstanding community. That would be an ideal achievement for the city of Creswell.
I love that, Vincent. That it sounds like you're building towards that, and obviously, if you had all the money in the world, you would be building towards that in a year. But slow and steady is probably the better way, so you
Yes.
can figure out as growing pains come. With new levels, there can be new things that come. So before we close out, I'd love to give you the opportunity, if there's anything you'd like to leave our viewers, either about Cresswell or about what it is to be a city manager.
So first about Creswell, I think if people are in Oregon and want to visit a beautiful small rural community, Creswell is definitely one of those. Being a city manager is new to me. It is not something that I thought I was going to do, but my experience and the tools I acquired along the way fit nicely with the job. It's really a great responsibility to have because you're not only representing the community locally, but you get to speak for the community and about the community regionally. with different agencies, and you get to, in a way, stand up for that community and for the merits of that community and why we're important enough to get certain funding or should get certain funding. So there's a lot of pride in that, especially in a small community, because people know who I am. I walk outside and they knew who I am. And that also makes it really nice because we're working very hard, staff and myself, for our neighbors. And I think that's one of the really rich things about living in a smaller community. You're not you're not obscured from the public, so your level of responsibility to them is really important, and that's a humbling experience as well.
Is very impressive and something that I'm glad left with the viewers. Sometimes in smaller communities, I start with larger communities. You have that level of separation, good or bad. However, you take it from the community. It may be a little bit harder to sometimes put yourself in everyone's shoes, but in a smaller community, you go to the market, you go to the high school football, like you're seeing everybody
Yes.
around everybody, so that feedback loop is just a little bit tighter, which I think is beautiful. So, from everybody here at Gentry, Vincent, I'd like to thank you and just say we appreciate you coming today. I know you're very busy. I know a lot goes on as a city manager, but we appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And then to the viewers, we appreciate you. Keep coming with great questions and great suggestions for the podcast. We love seeing those, listening to those. So for everyone here at Gentry, I'm your host, Jonathan Mason. I was joined here with Vincent Martorello, who is the city manager of Creswell, Oregon. Thank you so much and have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
Jonathan. You too. Bye bye.